is January Jones. She is not a young, beautiful, talented actress on Mad Men. She is not an older, gorgeous, exotic dancer from the Johnny Carson Show. She is an author, and she wrote Thou Shalt Not Whine, the 11th Commandment, that reached #1 at Amazon.com. She is a reality TV golf personality with World High Stakes Golf televised on HDNet. She is a humorist and winologist expert. She is your featured host today on January Jones Sharing Success Stories. So sit back, relax, and get ready to laugh and listen to Ms. Jones with her eclectic roster of guests as you learn life's lessons. These stories plus sharing equals success. Welcome, and remember, beware, because you are entering the no whining world of January Jones.
Now, let me ask you a question. Have you ever been an advocate for anything? Think about it. Tell me, can you imagine what it would be like to have an event in your life that totally changed your life? Have you ever wondered why your own actions can be personally rewarding? Now would you like to learn what happens when you answer the call to do something very important? Tell me, have you ever heard of a book called Advocacy Heals You? 15 Key to Fast-Track Results in Emotional Fulfillment. Now would you like to meet two people who have some of the answers that we're looking for today? Now are you ready to learn how to be successful and how to become an advocate? If you can answer yes or maybe to any of these questions, then you are in the right place. And I'd like to welcome you to January Jones Sharing Success Stories. Today, I'll be introducing you to two guests. They are authors and success coaches extraordinaire. They will provide us with information and inspiration and some really, really great advice about becoming an advocate. I'm pleased to announce that the show is now live on Talk4 Media and syndicated on 6 networks with over 4.5 million listeners to date. We are archived 24/7 for your listening pleasure. So now it's time for you to sit back and relax as you enter the no wine zone. Pour yourself a glass of wine, get some cheese and crackers, and enjoy our show. Now, let me tell you a little bit about my guests today. They are Joni Aldrich and Chris Jerry. They believe that heartfelt charity begins with advocacy. The type of advocacy they practice and promote comes from personal experience and often from an incident resulting in a personal loss. In their new Pulitzer Prize nominated book, Advocacy Heals You, they discuss causes that lead to a deep desire for becoming advocates, and they discuss strategies that they have personally applied to heal and give back. Their book offers a blueprint for how to make a commitment and have ongoing dedication to serve in an advocacy role in communities throughout the world. Welcome to the show, Joni and Chris. It's so wonderful to have you with us.
Oh, thank you so much for having us.
Well, you know, I'm going to start with Joni's been on the show many times, and Chris, this is your first time on the show. I usually like to start the show off by asking our guests to share with our listeners where your success story began, where you were born, raised, and who your early mentors were.
Oh, my. Is the question to me?
Yes.
First? Okay.
Yes.
I was born and raised here in Cleveland, Ohio. Actually, in a small town right next to the small town where I currently live, which is Chagrin Falls, and I was a typical boy. Very, well, I shouldn't say typical. I was a little bit different in the sense that I was always very much into sports and things of that nature, but I also have a very big science mind, and I always have ever since I was a kid. I was the kind of boy that used to get in a lot of trouble for taking my toys apart to see what made them tick or to try to improve their performance and that kind of thing. I went to college in Southern Ohio. At Ohio University, and have had a very successful career in international business in medical imaging up until the point where, unfortunately, back in 2006, I lost my 2-year-old daughter, Emily, to a tragic medication error.
Oh my gosh!
Right after she had miraculously been cured of a grapefruit-sized mass in her abdomen that completely disappeared after 5 months of chemotherapy, and that changed my life. January, as you can imagine, and immediately after Emily's tragic passing, I knew my career was going to change, and I decided shortly after Emily's death to establish the Emily Jerry Foundation in her honor, which is all about being an active part of the solution to preventable medical errors, which are now the third leading cause of death in the United States, claiming over 440,000 lives each and every year.
That is amazing. What a horrible experience to go through. And yet you, from this tragedy, you created a nonprofit organization and to raise awareness about preventable medical errors with emphasis on the errors. Joni, how did you meet Chris?
Well, it's interesting, January, because as you know, for about the last 5 years, I've been involved in many different radio programs. As a matter of fact, now I'm looking back, and I actually have launched 8. And out of the 8, all but one of them is still being broadcast somewhere in the world. So I'm absolutely thrilled to have been able to do that. But one of the most poignant shows that I've ever done, as you know, let me go back a little bit further because I'd like to kind of answer your question a little bit to link it to Chris's. And that is, I'll keep it short because I know probably some of your listeners have heard it before. I lost my husband at the age of 45 in 2006 to metastatic brain cancer. His treatment right from the very beginning of his cancer was, I won't call it botched, because that's not a great word. It's not a word that Chris and I use a lot. But let's just say it didn't go well right from the start. And we went along with advice to have standard treatment for him when, in fact, his cancer was aggressive because they had missed signs of that, and we never could get ahead of the cancer. So I won't say that we had a perfect experience, certainly by any means, and of course it ended up with his tragic death. So fast forward, I wrote books, and published books on the topic of cancer, and then went into radio, have launched some wonderful shows, Cancer SOS, Treatment SOS, etc. But one of the most poignant shows that I ever produced was one on pediatric malpractice, pediatric medical errors. I produced a special 2-hour show. For whatever reason, as a radio host, you understand that sometimes you have these groups of people that seem to come into your spectrum, and you see an opportunity to help them to raise their cause, being an advocate myself. And Chris was on that show. And and after Chris told his story about his little girl, we conversed back and forth a couple of times, and then I thought, I'm thinking about a new radio show. And so it kind of started from there. We created a radio show called Advocacy Heals You, It's on every Tuesday in W4WN, W4CS. And we've been doing it for several years now, and Chris and I have interviewed hundreds of advocates from around the world. And of course, I've interviewed many, many advocates on my other show. But that's kind of how we came into each other's spectrum, and we're just very simpatico. And we, I have to say, you asked who we admire the most, and I have a feeling that Chris would probably say me, and I would probably say him.
Yes.
So that's why we have a great working relationship.
That is so true, Joni. So true.
And actually,
leave it to the woman to bring that up, right?
You're right.
And actually, I admire both of you because many years ago, Joni is the one who suggested I come to Talk for Media and help launch my show. And Chris,
wonderful.
We have a connection. I have relatives who live in Chagrin Falls. Also, my husband is from Cleveland, and he went to Ohio State.
Oh,
so we're in Buckeye.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah, we are total Buckeye family.
Wow.
Okay, Advocacy Heals, 15 keys to fast track results. Now, Joni, would you give me the first 5 keys?
Absolutely, and thankfully, I actually have the book up here. Because believe it or not, somehow or another, even when you write a book, you can't always do it.
Right.
Let me give you a little background, too, because you mentioned some of the keys to the keys in your introduction. And so I want to bring up the fact that one of the patterns that Chris and I have always found through the advocates that we speak to week after week is something that we call the event. Most people go through an event. It may be a cancer diagnosis. We'll all go through an event in our life, let's face it. Of some sort, you're always faced with some challenge, caregiving for an elderly parent. And then based on that event, you see a need. And based on that need, you have an internal call to do something. And from that is the advocacy. Now, January, the reason we call the book and the radio show Advocacy Heals You, and that's a U, not Y-O-U, but a U. Eventually, maybe we'll have Advocacy Heals University. We're looking ahead a little bit, too. But is what we found is that people go into advocacy thinking they're going to help other people. And they do help other people. But the interesting thing about it is because they're healed in the process.
Yes.
And we've interviewed grieving fathers who have lost, Ellen Tadero story is in the book, grieving fathers who, will never see their 3-year-old child again. His son disappeared 20 years ago. He's still trying to find out what happened. And he said he was healed through advocacy. So it's a very powerful thing that this is the first book ever written on advocacy for advocates and by advocates.
This is a fantastic title, and we have some fantastic sponsors. And when we come back, we're going to talk. We're going to talk to Chris a little bit about what he did right after he lost his daughter and how he came about to create a foundation. We'll be right back.
Joining January Jones as her co-host on the show is Miles Miller, the great success creator. Miles is a 2-time best-selling author with books entitled Against the Grain and Successonomics. He continues to transform 100,000 people all over the world through his speaking and training. His uplifting and essential messages like Bulletproof, Time Machine, and Strength in Numbers are impacting every audience he meets. Together with January Jones, they'll explore how to be successful and what steps you can take to achieve the success you want. Visit successhq.net, leadup.biz, and learningbreaks.com. With over 30 years as a registered nurse with empathic abilities, Carolyn Green, a.k.a. the Energy Nurse, is bridging the gap between traditional and alternative medicine. Certified in the areas of energy medicine, life coaching, and as a medical intuitive, she brings to each client an integrative approach to body, mind, and spirit. Her book, found on Balboa Press and Amazon, Getting to Know You, Guided Pearls of Wisdom for a More Soulful Existence, is a channel journey for clearing the mind clutter to bring about healthier thought patterns. As a motivational speaker, Carolyn brings new light to old issues and is engaging, interactive, and enlightening. With her newly launched The Energy Nurse Jewelry line, she brings to you stones and crystals that are not only beautiful to wear, but balancing and healing as well. To contact or learn more about Carolyn, go to www